Viral edits. Thousands of tutorials promise the world, but how many actually deliver? The reality is, a few key techniques are all you need to stand out. And today, I'm putting that to the test. I stumbled on a viral video on Instagram that I couldn't ignore. I'm going to break it down, rebuild it from scratch, and show you exactly how it's done. Every single step inside DaVinci Resolve. Ready to make viral magic? Let's do it. Let's start by adding a text node and connecting it to the media out. Next, type your word. I'll use loss as an example. Then, change your font and size as you like. After that, we need to separate the letters. Copy the text node and paste it into the workspace. Then connect it to the first text node so that a merge node is created automatically. Next, select the copied text and change its color. Then delete the text and duplicate it 3 more times. Finally, select the first copied text node and type the first letter L, align it perfectly with the reference text, and do the same for all the letters. After that, delete the reference text node since we don't need it anymore, and connect the last merge node to the media out. Now that we have separate letters, let's move to the second step, where we animate the letters. First, select your first copied text node and add a transform node. Then, move the pivot point to the middle of the letter L. Go to frame 5 and set a keyframe for the center. Next, move forward about 15 frames to frame 20 and reposition the letter wherever you prefer. After that, open the Spline tab, select all keyframes by pressing Ctrl+A, and then press S to smooth out the animation. To make it even smoother, press Ctrl+T to open the ease section and lock the key, making sure the ease in and ease out values are the same. Set the value to 55. Finally, copy the transform node, select the second text node, and press Ctrl+V to paste it. Repeat these steps for the other text nodes as well. But before we continue, let's change the name of the text node to keep things organized. I named each node with the same letters as before. The first is L, the second O, the third S, and the fourth multi-S. However, if you notice, all the letters are in the same position, which isn't what we want. So make sure you're on the last keyframe, frame 20 in this case, and adjust each letter to fit where you want it. Make sure to change the pivot position to center it in the middle of each character. Right now, the animation starts all at once, so let's fix that. Select all the transform nodes and open the keyframes editor. Once it's open, start with the second transform node. Select both keyframe lines and move them 5 frames after the last keyframe of the first transform node, so it lands on frame 25. Do the same for all the other transform nodes. The third one should start at frame 45, and the fourth one at frame 65. Now, you've got a nice staggered animation. Let's move on to the next step. We will now create the word learn. First, copy the L node and paste it into the workspace. Then, press F2 to rename the copied text to learn and update the name in the Inspector tab as well. To see our progress, drag the merge node to the viewer. Now, change the color of the learn text and adjust its position so that it aligns correctly with the letter L. However, if we delete the letter L from learn, the word will no longer fit where we want it. To fix this, copy the learn node and paste it again. This will automatically create a new merge node. Change the color of the copied node and ensure it is positioned underneath the original one. To do this, simply select the merge node and press Ctrl+T to swap the inputs. Next, select the original text and remove the L. Then adjust the position of the remaining text so that it fits correctly. Now, delete both the copied text and the extra merge node as we no longer need them. Now, let's animate this text. Go to the frame where the first letter's animation ends, in this case, frame 20. Select the Learn node, then click on the Transform icon to create a Transform node. In the Inspector tab, add a keyframe for the center parameter and adjust the X value to move the text slightly to the left. Then, go 5 frames and reset the X value to 0.5. To make the animation smoother, Open the spline editor and adjust the curve so that the movement starts fast and slows down toward the end. This gives the animation a natural and polished look. It's time to add a mask to make the word appear only in front of the first letter. Connect the rectangle mask to the mask input of your merge node and adjust its position to make the word disappear. Then, increase the soft edge value to create a smooth animation with a subtle shadow. Check the invert box in the inspector. If you notice that the two texts are merging together in this frame, and we don't want that, adjust the mask position to ensure they remain separate. Now that we have the animation, let's select these four nodes, press Ctrl plus space, and search for underlay for better organization. Next, repeat the same steps for all the words. For the transform node, copy the first one and add it after the second text node. Then, open the keyframes panel and adjust the animation so it starts at the end of the second letter's animation, at frame 40 in this case. To see the final result, select the Media Out node and drag it to the viewer. Now, you have this awesome animation. However, I don't like the position of the O, so I'll select its Transform node, navigate to the last keyframe, and adjust the position as needed. I'll also modify the position of the S to align it with my vision. This looks perfect to me. Now, let's add a mouse cursor to the workspace. In my case, I want to use a rectangle mask to isolate a specific part of the image, so I'll apply it accordingly and adjust its position for accuracy. Next, connect the output of the cursor image to the last merge node, which will automatically create a new merge. Then, I'll add a transform node. The first step is to change the pivot point, aligning it with the finger so the animation originates from that position. Finally, return to the Media Out view and adjust the cursor size as needed. Now, let's animate the cursor. Start by positioning it outside the frame at frame 1, then add a keyframe in the inspector at the center position. Next, go to frame 5 where the first letter animation begins and move the cursor to the middle of the letter L. After 15 frames, adjust the position again to reconnect with the middle of L. Continue by advancing 5 frames to the start of the O animation and reposition the cursor to the middle of O. Repeat this process for all remaining letters, ensuring smooth transitions. Once complete, move 10 frames forward and shift the cursor downward to exit the screen. Now, if we preview the animation, we may notice that the cursor movement isn't perfectly synchronized with the text. To refine this, open the spline editor. Select all keyframes by pressing Ctrl plus A, then press F to smooth the motion. Adjust the easing value to match the initial position animation, 55 in this case. With these adjustments, the animation now flows seamlessly. To enhance the natural movement, let's add another transform node after the text. Since the first animation starts at frame 5, go to frame 4, set a keyframe for the size, then move to frame 5 and slightly increase the value. Make sure to adjust the pivot point to the center of each letter. The animation ends at frame 20, so at frame 19, add another keyframe. Then reset the size to 1 at frame 20. This creates a smooth holding zoom effect. To apply the same effect to all letters, copy the new transform node and paste it after each letter. However, if the animations start simultaneously, we need to offset them. Select the second transform node, and since its animation begins at frame 25, go to frame 24, open the keyframes editor, and shift the keyframe to start there. Repeat this adjustment for all letters. For a more precise effect, adjust the pivot position to the center of each letter. So now we have this animation. Cool, right? Now let's enhance the look further. Select the last merge node, search for soft glow, and apply it. Increase the glow size to 100, then reduce the gain until it looks just right. To add depth, apply a drop shadow node. Since the black background makes it hard to see, right-click in the viewer, select Options, and enable underlay. Adjust the shadow values to achieve the desired look. Finally, compare the animation with and without these effects. You'll notice a significant improvement in visual appeal. Now, let's add a background. Select the drop shadow node and click the background icon to create one. However, this makes the background the foreground, so select the new merge node and press Ctrl+T to swap the inputs. I also want to change the black background to a darker shade so the shadow appears more clearly and gives the text more depth. You can skip this step if you prefer, but for me, I don't want the glow and shadow effects on the mouse cursor. So, I'll select both effects, press Ctrl+X to cut them, and paste them into the workspace. Then, I'll disconnect Merge 4 and reconnect it to these two nodes. I like how this version looks better. For my background, I want to add a texture to make it look more powerful. Simply add your texture image to the workspace, and insert a multi-merge node after the background node. Then connect the texture image to it. Select the multi-merge node, change the mode to overlay, and adjust the blend value if needed. And make that for all texture image you want to add. Here's the before and after of the texture. I also added an underlay to keep everything organized. Next, I'll change the color of the first letters. Select the first letter L. If you remember, the animation ends at frame 20, so go to frame 19 and set a keyframe for color. In frame 20, change the color to whatever you like. Now, select O, go to frame 39, set a keyframe, and in frame 40, change the color to match the last one. Select the first S, set a keyframe at frame 59, and change its color in frame 60. Lastly, select the final S, set a keyframe at frame 79, and change it in frame 80. Now for the final result. Let's take it a step further. Go to the Editing tab, right-click on the Fusion composition, and select New Compound Clip. Drag it to the second timeline, press R, check reverse speed, and set the speed to 300. stretch it to the end, and now you've got a perfect loop viral edit done. See you in the next video.